Come on. Oh, let me start over. Thank you so much for having me come and speak about ADHD. This is definitely a passion of mine, and will be speaking from the heart as well as speaking from my mind during this time. And so, feel free to come on camera, not come on camera, ask questions, don't ask questions, use the chat. I will try to also be cognizant of what's happening in the chat. So if there's questions there, I'll try to answer them as I go, or I'll wait to the end. If you also feel like something resonates with you, go ahead and put a +1 in the chat while I'm talking, and just trying to give you some ways to like utilize the chat function during this conversation. So today I'm going to be talking about all things ADHD at work. Now this is only 30 minutes, so I'm not going to be doing a super deep dive into ADHD, but we'll be having some general conversations about executive functions and the impact that it has on work. So I do have a presentation for y'all. Let me just pull it up. Okay, can y'all see it? You should be able to see it. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, so we're going to be talking about ADHD and understanding it in the work environment. So I don't know can you tell me how familiar y'all are with ADHD? Put in the chat like maybe on a scale of 1 to 5. 1, I know nothing about ADHD. 5, I know absolutely everything about it. Okay, a lot of people in the middle. Okay. Oh, and hi, some 4s. Okay, this is good to know. Okay, so this will help me tailor this a little bit more because I don't want to be too general and bore everybody in this meeting. um, um, so how do I go to the next slide? Here we go. And so, ADHD, it's named. I would consider it named wrong. And so, it focuses on the hyperactivity, but the reality is that there are 3 different parts of ADHD: inattentive, hyperactive, and combined. And so, what that can look like is, you think about the person that is all over the place, can't stop moving. And then you also have the person that is kind of more reserved, but in their minds, they may be moving all over the place and just not necessarily really being able to pay attention and to focus. And then you have the people that are kind of a little bit of both. I also have ADHD, and so I present as combined. And so sometimes I can't stop moving, and then other times I may be looking like I'm still, but in my mind, I'm having 10 different conversations. Um, and so there's a lot of myths about ADHD that you probably have seen all over the internet. This is ADHD Awareness Month, since we want to be in a position where we're kind of debunking these. And so it is not a childhood disorder. A lot of adults have ADHD. I mean, once you have it it's not like it doesn't go away, right? And so, um, it just may present differently as you age. And so for instance, you may present as more hyperactive as a kid, but as you older and get more mature, it may become a little bit more inattentive, in terms of how it progresses within your brain. And so just kind of think about ADHD as like it impacts your executive functions, and and your and as your brain grows, your executive functions get a little bit better. So like how ADHD can show up in your world can look a little differently as well. And it also depends on, like what are you doing, right? So like the experiences that you have as a child with ADHD versus the experiences that you have an adult, like how you use your executive functions will be a little bit different. ADHD is also more than just a lack of focus. It impacts. So when I say executive functions, because I feel like I'm throwing that word out there a little bit. So when I say executive functions, I'm talking about the things that you need in order to function in the world. So planning and prioritization, organization, big picture thinking. You be able to regulate your emotions. What it means to really process and understand time, how organized you are, your ability to be distracted or to not be distracted. So those are all of the different types of executive functions that are controlled in your frontal lobe. So up here, and it's the last part of like your brain that kind of matures as you're aging, and it's a little bit underdeveloped with ADHD. And so it's not just your inability to focus. Like I feel like the what is it called? The what people think about it, it's like, oh, the squirrel is coming, and so you're kind of chasing whatever's coming in front of you, which can happen. But and a huge part of ADHD is also is emotional dysregulation. And how are you managing your emotions? And it's definitely not a character flaw. It is just a difference. We have a different brain, and that is also okay. And so you think about, and that's why I like to talk about executive functions and when it comes to ADHD or just in general, because we all have a brain, we all have a frontal lobe, and we all have stronger and weaker executive functions. If you are interested in learning about what your stronger and weaker executive functions are, I do have an assessment on my website that you can go and take whenever you want, so you can kind of better understand how you function within life and within the work, and how those things are impacting you. Also, this is what we talked about. So time management, so difficulty in managing task, organization, task initiation is also another one, and then the emotional regulation. And when we think about how this really impacts work and work dynamics. And so when you think about some of the different executive functions like planning and prioritization, right? And they will, and task initiation, like those things will impact your ability to be productive. The same thing with emotional regulation. Those will plus 10. um, yes. So these executive functions will impact your work. So, and let me give you some examples. Like for example, and this may come across as silly, but it's real life. And let's think about like you spend a lot of time on your email. Like we have these work cultures that are all surrounded by sending and receiving emails all day and every day. So you have an organization challenge, right? So you get this email and you don't know what to do with it. And so you either pin it and then now you have a 15 million pins, or it's left unread and now you have 1,500 unread emails. And so it's like, how do you, is your brain set up in a way to help you better to really organize your email in a way? Or when it comes to emotional dysregulation, now you're receiving an email from a colleague that may not be the colleague that you really want to necessarily hear from on a regular basis. Um, and so now that is impacting, it could potentially impact the rest of your day, but it's also impacting how you respond to that person. Impulsivity is an executive function as well that gets impacted by ADHD. And so are you in a position, like, is impulsivity a challenge for you with ADHD? And so you get this email that you may have some words that you probably shouldn't put in an email, um, but it's how you're feeling when in response. And so what do you do with that? Do you impulsively respond in the email and say all the things that you're feeling and then push send? Or does your executive functions allow you to, okay, let me step back a little bit, realize what's going on, process this information, take a chill pill a little bit, and then be able to respond with what society has deemed to be a little bit more professional, a professional in the responses. Um, and also, sometimes when you think about, and all of that impacts productivity, because while you're doing all of that, you're really supposed to be working on a project. And you have all of these projects that you're supposed to be working on, but the emotional dysregulation is coming in place because something got in the way, and then now you're stuck, and now you need to figure out how to move forward there. This can also, I mean, this is also related to team interactions too. Like, are you in a position to be able to really understand the social cues that are happening within the room? um, and in some cases you actually may be better equipped to understand the social cues. In some cases you may not be. And so, the ADHD brain also moves really quickly, and so we're in a team environment. You're processing information maybe potentially a little bit faster than other people in the room are. Now you jump 10 steps ahead and you want to talk about the solution or whatever the next 10 steps are, but you realize that everybody else in the room is still processing. And because they're still processing, where does that put you in the conversation? Are you able to wait until people um, get on board with where you're at in the conversation, or are you able to step back and be able to explain your process because your brain is moving so fast and you're processing information so quickly. In ways that in the work environment, it is important to understand that you can also ask for supports. And so we're not going to get in too much information about how to access accommodations, but the general principle around it is that ADHD is classified as a disability that is covered under the American Disabilities Act, and you are able to ask your company for additional supports. And that could look like anything from flexibility in terms of your work schedule. It could look like needing two computers, headphones, having a private office space. It could also look like asking for them to pay for an ADHD coach, like myself, and be able to access some additional sports. Maybe some project management software could be helpful for you. And thinking about, like, okay, how do you ask your employer for these additional supports? And that goes through the accommodations process through your HR office. And so you would ask, and Tanya can provide like the actual name of the person that you can reach at the university, and then tell them, like, hey, I have ADHD. I would like some additional accommodations, and can you help support me in that way? Now, please keep in mind, the office probably will not know what accommodations that you need. So it is important for you to understand how your brain works, how ADHD is impacting your work, what your job actually is and what it's supposed to be in writing, not what it turns into being, like what are you actually supposed to be doing for work, and how is your ADHD impacting that? And so you need to know the answers to those questions, because when you go to HR and ask them for accommodations, like, they need to know what it is that you need, and in some cases they want to know why. And so it's important to better understand your executive functions, which is why I also suggest going to my website, taking the assessment, so you can better understand how your brain works and how these different executive functions are impacting your work within your job, so that you can ask for additional supports. Is that helpful, everybody? I need some feedback from the crowd. Yes, okay, perfect. But I do not want to pretend that is just all problems, because it's not. And ADHD has a lot of strengths as well. And when you're in work, are you in a position where you're able to access your strengths? But even before that, do you know what your strengths are? And ADHDers tend to be a little bit be more creative. We have the ability to hyper focus, which is why the terminology ADHD doesn't always necessarily make sense, because we do have the ability to hyper focus on things that we really enjoy doing. And so sometimes, like, ADHD can also present as an interest based brain. And so, what are you interested in? What can you hyper focus on? Um, and how can your organization make sure that they're maximizing your ability, your ability to function in your strengths, also. And so we tend to sometimes be really adaptable and really flexible, um, as well. And really also the metacognition, which is like kind of the big picture thinking, and really being able to see, not like see in the future, but sometimes, like, we're processing information so quickly, like we know what's going to be happening 10 steps from now. And so how do we prep organizations, for that, right? And so we want to position ourselves to first fully understand what our strengths are, and then learn how to communicate those strengths to our supervisors and to our colleagues, and to make sure that people are tapping into that as well. Because that's gonna make you feel less burnt out. If you're in a place where your weaker executive functions are being taxed without additional supports, you're gonna feel burnout a little bit faster than you would normally. Life in general is just stressful right now, but um, yeah. And so that is that. So I did want to talk to you also. Are there any questions? Let me stop here before I get into kind of some of the work that I do with individuals and what I have going on right now as available resources for you. Any questions? No questions? Let me see. And feel free to If you want to just come on camera and ask too, you can do that, or you can put it in the chat. Okay, no questions. I will just move on then. Yes, I can put I have a bunch of links for you. So I'm going to put a couple of links in the chat in a second. So some of the work that I do with my clients, so I do work with women with ADHD, and I work closely with a lot of other coaches that work with a lot of other different demographic groups as well. But the way that my process works is that right now I'm doing individual one-on-one coaching. And so, we do an initial call, we make sure it's the right fit. We have our first session, and that's where I also work with my clients to do an assessment as well. So the assessment that I'm going to put a link, I promise I'm going to put the link in the chat. And we do that assessment together. And then we also take a really deep dive into what your work is and have a conversation about that. So what you can do individually, you can do all this by yourself, but with a coach, they're able to really pull out things about your work and your executive functions that you may not realize are connected in a way that you may not be able to do depending on how informed you are about ADHD and your own executive functions. And then from there, we just have some regular ongoing sessions. And so I'm all about these 4 pillars in my practice. It's one is increasing your awareness around ADHD in your brain, which goes along with ensuring that you're accepting how you function in this world. And then we talk about accommodations and strategies. And then we also talk about action and putting those things into place. And so it doesn't make sense if you know the strategies, if you're not actually implementing them. And so we talk about some effective habit building strategies. I'm adding some additional services to my practice around group coaching. So there's going to be a Thrive group coaching program coming soon. Right now, I am doing some one-on-one coaching, some individual group coaching, like some weekly during the month of October for ADHD Awareness Month. So that those sessions are available. So for example, tonight, I actually have a group coaching session. I'm putting that in the chat. And I'm also do some HR consulting because I don't come from a position where the ADHD is the one that needs to change when they walk into an organization. But I strongly believe that workplaces need to be more inclusive, and I'm positioned to be able to help support environments and how they can increase their inclusivity for adults with ADHD at work. And that includes like having conversations with people's managers, having conversations with HR departments, and about policies and procedures and practices. So all of those services are available through my practice.
Meghan, I actually do have 2 questions.
Yes.
The first one is, how does somebody get started on knowing whether or not they have ADHD? Like, what are the steps? And then the second question is, what would be helpful in terms of work environment to reduce the stigma? And as you shared some debunking of the myths earlier today, but how can that happen in the workplace or between, an employee and their supervisor? Is there any resources or any concrete things that they can do to kind of help their work environment?
So let me answer the first question, which I should have written down.
I can say it again. First question,
Okay.
how does somebody get started on finding out or figuring out whether or not they do have ADHD?
Okay, let's start there. So you need to go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist. They will be able to provide you some testing. So if you think that you have ADHD, so one, let me start off and say, if you believe or think that you have ADHD, you can still access resources and supports. And so there's tons of information about ADHD. There's the ADA. I have information on my website, but then also there's ADD.org. Also, and I think that they have like I think they have like a quick like questionnaire. It's not a diagnosis. And so, but they have a quick questionnaire to kind of give you an idea if you believe that you may have ADHD. But if you want an actual diagnosis, then you need to need to go to your doctor and ask them for a referral if you need a referral to see a psychologist, psychiatrist, and then you would get a formal assessment. Um, but read, like, look at ADD.org. There's tons of resources available on that organization. There's actually a conference coming up in November as well that will, and then they're doing a virtual version. So the conference this year is in Anaheim, California, but in January, I think January, February, they're going to be having a virtual one as well. And so and then all of the previous conference information is also available on their website. And so there's tons of resources and information available if you just want to just gain a better understanding about your own ADHD.
Okay,
And
so,
then, go
oh,
ahead.
I was gonna say, repeat the second question. If you,
Yes.
the second question was, how can employees or employers um, decrease the stigma around ADHD and have a more inclusive work environment?
So there's so many ways. What's interesting is that I literally just had an IG live this morning about DEI initiatives and about how organizations can include ADHD into the conversations around inclusivity and just DEI initiatives in general. And that can happen anywhere within the organization, but like it always starts with leadership, right? And so it starts with leadership and it goes down. It's creating a culture where difference is okay, and it's working with managers and helping managers better understand that not all of their employees are neurotypical, and they also may not be neurotypical themselves. And it's learning more information about ADHD, and so it's increasing the awareness within the organization itself, um, to understand that there are different ways of doing things and still getting to the same result, and recognizing that that's okay. um, it's also, it starts from recruitment, honestly. Like it starts from the recruiting practices, hiring practices. Like, what does the application look like? What are your interview questions? Are you providing interview questions beforehand? Are you allowing people the space to be noticed a process, or are you judging them? Um, you judging them from the beginning, and so off of a standard that doesn't make sense. And so the reality is like the data is starting to show that 70+% of the workforce is neurodiverse. And that doesn't just include ADHD, but includes ADHD, autism, OCD, like anxiety, depression, like all of these other areas, dyspraxia, dyslexia, everything. And so we need to start recognizing that our policies and procedures need to be more inclusive. And so taking a review of what your policies and procedures are, management, and like making sure that managers understand that one-on-one meetings are important. Structure is important for the ADHD brain. And so it's, some of it is like knowledge and shifting perspective. Like some managers would be like, oh, I don't want to meet with my employee every week. Like this feels like a burden. Like that's the wrong mindset. So it's shifting the mindset. Like this, making sure that we're on the same page and being aware of like what a priority is important. And making sure you're having those meetings. And for an ADHDer who is struggling with planning and prioritization, having a safe space and creating a psychologically safe space that allows your employee to say, you know what, I'm not sure how to prioritize this, or this is how I'm thinking about prioritizing my projects right now. Does that make sense to you? Are we on the same page? And so some of it is just shifting some language and some ideology around what does managing an employee look like. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So right now I'm trying to drop a whole bunch of different links into the chat around what's going on right now. So this is ADHD Awareness Month. So this is my month, right? And so I'm really excited. So right now I'm doing this whole series of IG lives for ADHD Awareness Month. And it is about teaching everybody about all the different topics when it comes to ADHD. So this week we've already had a full conversation around executive functions, specific executive functions. So I had a conversation with a psychologist, and we talk about medications and how medications impact your executive functions in ADHD and what that looks like. What are the stronger ones? What are the weaker ones when it comes to ADHD? Today we talked about DEI practices. Tomorrow we're talking about workplace accommodations. I have somebody coming in and talking about how to interview with ADHD. where I think next Monday or Tuesday we're talking about AI and how to best maximize and navigate the AI world with ADHD and how it can be a really helpful resource. Um, we're just having some educators, former educators, coming in and talk about their experience of teaching with ADHD and some of the challenges that came up and what they would and what they would do differently now that they know that they have ADHD. Um, who else? We have marriage and family therapists coming in and talking about ADHD and relationships. Some other psychologists coming in. Like next week, we're going to be talking about therapy versus coaching and how to access both, and then different types of therapy and how different types of therapy impact ADHD differently. We have somebody else coming in and doing some nervous system reset work and some mindfulness practices. And so every Monday through Friday throughout the month of October, we're going to be having a different professional come in and talking about some different strategies and solutions to and address some different challenges that may be happening in the worlds of ADHD. And so I want you to tune in if you can. They are all happening live um, on my Instagram account. Here is the website to learn more about that.
What
And
time do those take place? What time during the day?
it's all at different times. Like today it was at 9, but a lot of them also are in the evening, 5:30, 7 o'clock. There may be a random one at noon. I do have some people coming in from international too, some from like Poland and New Zealand. And so, we're working around time zones. Like I didn't want to pick a time where it was 1 o'clock in the morning for them. Um, and so all of that information. But if you follow me on Instagram, then you will get the um, updated list of events.
Someone is asking if they're going to be recorded.
They are all recorded. Right now, the one that I did by myself is posted on my Instagram page. The full the full recording is definitely going to be posted within the private Facebook group. There may be clips on Instagram of the conversation. The conversations are good, like 45 minutes to 60 minutes long. We are working. We need to edit them a little bit, and then they're going to be. They potentially even could be posted on YouTube. I don't know, but follow. If you follow me, then they will be posted. You'll know where they're posted, so you can rewatch them. Um, but they all will be recorded and they will be somewhere available. Do you, I'm trying to move this thing out the way. Do you offer services for men? I do have recommendations. And so I don't really, honestly, I don't deny anybody. If you're interested in getting coaching, then I just coach you. um, but I do have some recommendations for men as well. And also, ADD.org has a bunch of different support groups available as well. So they have one like for entrepreneurs, they have one for everybody. They have an international one, and then there's also a nonprofit organization that works with men as well. I'm putting the link in the chats. I know one of the founders. He's awesome. Um, oops, I think I just did a direct message to a bunch of people. Sorry. Here is the support group for men. And I know they do have a support group meeting every Sunday, I think at 6.
And Megan, maybe offline I can get these resources in an email and send it to everyone who registered for today's
Yes.
presentation.
I do have some book recommendations too. Those are available here. I have links to everything. My Amazon shop has a bunch of different book recommendations. And so it kind of depends. So there's like general books about ADHD, which I recommend in that list too. But then there's like specific ones around organizers. Oh, speaking of which, I think the next Friday, I have an organizer coming in alive into talking about like organizing and ADHD as well. Um, so there's tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of information available.
It is 12:32 now. I see a lot of folks are still on. Um, if you have time and if anybody else has one or two questions they'd like to share or ask.
Yeah, and if you have a question that you want me to answer live as well, um, on Instagram, you can also submit it. Yeah, I'll just send you an email with all these links because it's a lot.
Someone's al- Somebody's also asking about psychiatrists or psychologists you recommend for assessment and treatment.
In this particular, in the DMV,
Yes.
I will send you some that I know of, I think. Yes.
Okay.
And it is important to have a psychiatrist and psychologist that actually believes in ADHD. That's like a whole other conversation for another day. Um, as well.
Any
And
other questions? I am gonna get this list of resources she shared and email it to everyone who registered for today.
yes, and I will organize the list for you too. Yeah, any other questions? I appreciate y'all taking the time to learn more about ADHD, that's for sure. And I hope that all of this information was helpful for you.
Thank you so much. They're getting some comments in the chat too.
Oh, good. I see. I feel seen. Good. Yes. Yay.
All right. Thank you so much, Megan, for coming and talking to us and sharing all these resources. It sounds like these lives are going to be, a lot of resources and free resources,
It's all, it's all
on
free.
Instagram. So definitely check those out. Thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here. And I hope everybody has a good rest of their week. Stop.